Cool. Well, let's get into Vanderpump rules. We're going to do another 20 seconds to summarize what stood out to you for the episode, Dan. So I'll start that right now.
Okay. Well, initially it was meeting a guy named Tom at his birthday party, and then there was the whole emo night at a club where we find out that apparently he was sleeping with someone named Kristen like 10 years ago or something, and then from there, there's a lot of conversation. Okay, just a lot of conversation between different groups, and it was a lot. I was trying to figure out who this Tom guy was because it seems like everybody. I mean, obviously, this is what happens when you just watch one episode, right? You're kind of thrown into it.
Yeah.
But what confused me about that was I didn't realize until near the end of the episode there's actually another Tom, isn't there? Because they kept calling him Sandoval, and I was like, wait, who's that? Yeah, so. I think, that was a little confusing.
Yeah, I think you nailed the one like fulcrum for this episode, and that is Tom Sandoval. This was like his episode. It was him versus the world, and I think that's something that we're going to see this entire season. But yeah, that's definitely the main crux of what we saw today. Let's talk about how this story was told. Dan, we'll start with you. Was there any sort of artistic choices that you saw that stood out to you?
I guess there were a few things that stood out to me in this. I don't know if it's artistic, it's almost a marketing aspect where they're talking about the podcast that Scheana was doing. I think that's how you say her name. And to me, as a podcaster, I was also kind of like, okay, what did you actually say on here? And they kind of allude to it, but it's also very obvious that you're supposed to go listen to this other episode and, to go do that. And so it was like, okay, they're marketing for this. And so I think it was done in a clever way. I picked up on it. I'm sure other people pick up on that too, but I thought they did a good job of doing that where they have these multiple things, and that in and of itself can be an art form as far as, when you're editing and making it still entertaining and not so obvious that this is an ad for my podcast over here.
Yeah, totally. Dylan, how about you?
There aren't like specific instances of artistic choices that are really standing out to me. Just the general feeling that, as you've kind of alluded to, both of you guys, Tom Sandoval's presence is like a gravitational force that's just kind of like warping the space and time around everybody else's relationships right now. And I just find that really interesting. And it gives so much energy to the show right now, I think. Just like, like how it starts out too. And we get like, I guess this is an artistic choice. We do actually like kind of cross cut between Sandoval talking about how his little conversation with James went to the guests at his party, including Tom Schwartz, and James Kennedy discussing how it went, describing his version of it to the girls and the other people who are going out to emo night. So that is nice that we do get, instead of, they don't just present the two back to back, we do get a couple instances of them cutting from one version of it to the next, and we get to see how they're both kind of working in the immediate aftermath of this little conversation to try to build a narrative around it that makes them look better. That makes the other person look like the annoying, unreasonable one. And since that's how the episode starts, and that's kind of how we're framed going forward, is like, what does it mean to talk to Tom Sandoval right now? And like, is that going to like tarnish you with everybody else afterwards? Or can you talk to Tom Sandoval and like bring something out of it that will be like useful when you go talk to other people? It'll give you like some social capital. And I think the way everybody's just kind of trying to navigate about like what are the new rules surrounding Tom Sandoval now that he's back,
right,
is like super interesting to me.
Yeah, because we even saw Scheana. She didn't want to be seen talking to him. She was open to the conversation, but she wanted to do it in the alley. So yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to be seen, but let's put this on national TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was a symbol that stood out to me, and that was emo night. I really liked the idea that we had all of these characters that were at emo night. They are all in some way they're profiting off of this this manufactured sadness and anger that the public has towards Tom Sandoval and Rachel Levesque. And so to see all of these people at emo night, where it's about like having this manufactured sad music that has been like commodified, and them like reveling in it and just like enjoying it.
Yeah, holding up balloons that say sad as fuck on them, which is what an image is that, right? It's a balloon, like a symbol of partying, having a good time, all good things, full of helium floating in the air, and then they print the letters sad as fuck on it. Yeah.
Totally, because all of these people are they're profiting from the fallout of Sandoval. This and Dan, for some context here, last season on Vanderpump Rules, it was revealed that Tom Sandoval and another cast member who hasn't returned as a result of this, they were sleeping together, and Tom Sandoval was in a relationship with Ariana, who we see on this episode for like 9 years. And so it was this huge explosive bombshell. But it really, like, there wasn't a lot of that presented within the narrative of season 10 of Vanderpump Rules. Not until the very last episode and the reunions did that become prominent. It really took on a life of its own online, and how the fan base is engaging with this and really like latching onto this hatred and anger that they have. And every single one of these cast members that we saw grouped at this emo night are also, you know, putting out podcasts or their own line of like t-shirts or whatever. And they're all like profiting off of this anger that there exists within the fan base towards Tom Sandoval and Rachel. So I thought it was really funny that we saw them all grouped together at emo night.
Yeah, totally. And how kind of interesting is it to contrast that kind of, like you said, sort of a manufactured spectacle of indulging in negative feelings, or like the idea of negative feelings as like a party game, compared to like when like Lisa has to deal with Tom Sandoval, implying that maybe he's gone to a very dark place and has like a very real sadness, and having to navigate like, okay, like it's possible that he's just saying these things because he wants sympathy now. That's a very real possibility, but also you have to take that seriously too, because you kind of, especially somebody like Lisa who has lost somebody close to her to suicide, like you can never just afford to assume that somebody is just pretending to be dealing with like, you know, depressive thoughts or whatever. You have like an obligation to take that seriously. So that kind of like very stark, like almost like reality breaking idea of like actual sadness, the possibility being invoked of like a real like depression or something that could like have repercussions, contrasted with like the plastic spectacle of like fake emo sadness, is like just, it's very entertaining and interesting as like the contrast between like the idea of an emotion and the real difficult to manage reality of emotions, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And to see that emo night, you know, intercut with the shots of Tom's party, where he's got like the tiniest birthday cake I've ever seen, like held out to him, and the room is cast in all these blue hues, and it really seems like a very depressing scene. It was a noticeable contrast from the jovial attitude that took place at this emo night, where, you know, they were celebrating anger and sadness.
Yeah. And how real is Lala for being like, I just want to say about the emo night, how real is Lala for being like, I don't even know what emo is. Like, yeah, I'm sure half the people at that party don't know what emo is either. Like, at least you're saying it. You know, just like, is it Nickelback?
I don't know.
It's pretty good.
Totally. Let's get into our highlights. Dan, what were your highlights from this episode?
Let's see. My highlight for this episode let's go with my notes. Sorry. I think something that stood out to me as a highlight there is you kind of alluded to talking about the difference between the emo night and celebrating that, but something that happened at Tom's birthday party. I noticed he was complaining about somebody who didn't text him, but he wasn't there celebrating. Like they're celebrating his birthday. There were a bunch of people there actually celebrating his birthday, but he was focused on the one person that didn't text him. And then there was also talking about, was it Ali, I think was Tom's friend's name, who passed away. Yeah. So he was dealing with a lot of that, but a lot of the other people who I assumed everybody in this group, they're all friends. I assume, I don't know, you have a close friend, best friend passes away and somebody else, like you got to be understanding and empathetic. I felt there, maybe this is a dark highlight, but I didn't feel like there was much empathy for anybody else as far as that, or even enjoying the moment. I mean, at your birthday party, enjoying the people who are there, as opposed to focusing on, I don't know. It seemed like the highlights for me they were highlighting the wrong things. They were focusing on the wrong things. Like you're at your birthday party, somebody didn't text you. I don't know how many birthdays I've had where a friend didn't text me. Okay.
Right.
I'm at a birthday party and there's a bunch of people here celebrating. Let's celebrate. And I don't know. It just seemed like there were a lot of negative highlights.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think like one thing that stood out to me about that comment about Tom not getting a text, and so the person that he was sad about not getting a text from was Rachel, the former coworker or former co-star that was involved in this scandal. I think that there are maybe some feelings there that he still has, but it seems like he is like grasping at whatever he can find to try to elicit some sympathy, because he's coming into the season as a very unsympathetic character. And it was interesting that he would latch on to that. Did you have any other highlights from this, Dan?
No, not in particular. I mean, it took a little bit to wrap my head around that aspect of all of it. And so, but yeah, I think it was interesting because it seemed very different than what we're talking about with Real Housewives. Like that concept of it seemed a lot darker than I was expecting a reality show to be, I guess. I mean, granted, there are dark times in people's lives and I can certainly understand that, but that aspect of them focusing on that seemed darker than I was expecting.
Yeah, like tonally, it is a very different vibe than Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. There's actually a YouTuber named Broy de Chanel that just put out an episode about the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City's most recent season, as well as the Sandoval, and talking about how Bravo reality TV shows typically have something that they refer to as the Bravo wink in terms of how the tone that they take on when they're presenting things on screen, how Vanderpump Rules has become almost void of that and really shifted the perspective that it takes when it's presenting things. And yeah, you can totally feel a different vibe when you're watching Vanderpump Rules versus something like Housewives now.
Yeah, totally. I mentioned last episode that I feel like already in this young season, it feels like loss is a big theme. And then this new episode, it just kind of gets pushed up to another level when there's like the specter of like people who are actually lost to suicide being referenced in the show. It's like, yeah, it is getting kind of heavy at points, but I appreciate that they're willing to go there.
Yeah, they're not shying away from it. Totally. Dylan, what are your highlights from this episode?
My main highlight is the revelation that Lisa has Ken saved in her contacts as husband. Other than that, I do like, I enjoy Schwartz's dilemma too, where he's like, talking to Sandoval about his meeting with James and how he's like so torn between like James kind of offered him an olive branch earlier, and it would be like important for Schwartz to have like a bit of an alliance with James, since as we can see, like when he goes to emo night, he needs so badly to find a way to get like a firm grip back in the friend group. He really wants that door to be back open to him. He needs that. He can't be totally ostracized from them. And James being willing to like, be buddies with him is kind of the easiest way in. So he doesn't want to be totally agreeing with Sandoval when he's like, oh, fucking James just came here like an asshole and whatever, but is still like always going to be tied to Sandoval too. And then just the bind that Schwartz is in, that if it's like Sandoval versus James, it's going to be very awkward for Schwartz and his attempts to get back into the group.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? One thing that while I was watching this, I was thinking like Schwartz almost seems less connected to this group than Tom Sandoval does, because at least like Tom Sandoval is connected to this group through the conflict, whereas Schwartz put all his chips on Sandoval, and he's just kind of on an island. And then we get a confessional from Schwartz where he's talking about how he'd rather have the hate than the indifference, and I think that like he's totally feeling way more on the outs than Sandoval, because at least like people are thinking about Sandoval, and that's all they're thinking about in some cases, whereas Schwartz is just like a nuisance when he comes around.
Oh yeah, it's so awkward when he sits down with the group and half of them don't want him there and the other half are ambivalent about his presence, and he just forces himself to continue sitting regardless, because that's what he feels like he has to do. He can't like just walk away from the stable and be totally ostracized and alone. He did hit on the right strategy to like go to Scheana first, who's the easiest person to befriend, and immediately go in with like, oh, I like the glasses. It's like early 2000s, like Britney, right?
Yeah.
And of course she's like, yeah, totally. Like that's, and they know how to get to Scheana. Sandoval does basically
the exact same thing.
Sandoval's like, oh, the glasses. Yeah, you look like you wrote in from a Shania Twain video. And she's like, yeah, right. Early 2000s, right. Totally. they know what you got to say. But the other nuts are going to be tougher to crack than Scheana is. And Ariana is making it very clear that Scheana just doesn't want Schwartz there. So there is just such palpable awkwardness in that. And then he even says something to Ariana like, oh, why are you like the queen of the group? And it's like, did you not get the memo? That's the new configuration now. It's like, she is the queen of the group. So I don't know how this is going to go for you, but I'm enjoying the very awkward position that he's been put in.
Yeah, it's funny because it feels like a lot of the expositional responsibility is being placed on his shoulders. Like he needs to bring these two sides together and get them like to Lake Tahoe at the same time. And he's just this awkward like dummy fumbling around trying to drive the story forward in a way that's going to work in order to make good television. And there is a ton of real actual resistance to this. And there's a huge block of people that are trying to use all of their power that they hold within the sort of meta power dynamic of this show, and being like, no, I'm not going to go if Tom Sandoval's there, and we're not going to film, and you're not going to have a show. They're not saying those words, but that's like really the subtext here. And to put this responsibility on Tom Schwartz is a really unexpected choice, but he actually to me makes the most sense, just because like he's always been about trying to get people to like him and really like trying to crack people, and he's not like a strategic guy. He doesn't have like the smarts to really get the job done, but he does have the charm within this group in order to get it done. So he's not the person that I was necessarily expecting to try to bring this group together, although now that I think about it, I don't know who else would be a better fit. But yeah, it was unexpected, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's fun to watch because Schwartz has never been the guy who really makes things happen. like you say, kind of doesn't have that toolkit. He's not the shit disturber. He's not like the guy who goes and changes people's minds and gets them to do things. And now he feels like he has no choice but to be that guy and does not know how to do it. It's kind of similar to his relationship with the restaurant that he has with Sandoval, when, you know, Sandoval had to take a leave of absence, and when Schwartz is complaining to him about it, he was like, oh, I don't know, you could have like told me what to do or something. Like he just seems like helpless. He's like, you're the one who makes things happen. I don't know how to make things happen. And now, like in the restaurant, in the show, in his life, he's suddenly in a position where he somehow has to make things happen, and he just doesn't really know how to do it. So it's just great because he's such an awkward guy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Did you have any other highlights, Dylan?
I do think it's a really funny way for Sandoval to deny being a narcissist when Scheana calls him a narcissist, and he says, that's actually not the definition of a narcissist. You should look it up. Like, yeah, you're really beating those allegations there, man. Yeah. And I just want to say that the guy that Katie is like going on a date with, the guitarist or whatever, somebody from the band. I hope to see more of this, because like from the way that she describes it, where he's like, oh yeah, we just started talking, and he was like, oh, I don't know too much about tequila. You should tell me all you know about tequila. It just sounds like, okay, this guy is like horny. If he's just going up to Katie and be like, oh, I was really looking for somebody to tell me everything they know about tequila.
What's this exotic drink you're talking about?
So yeah, let's see some of that guy, please, in the future.
Just to learn more about the history of tequila, right?
Exactly.
Obviously. Yeah. I think we touched on most of my highlights here. The one other little like funny moment that I had written down was this idea of sober curious. Like Tom says that he's like sober curious, and Allie latching onto that as like this label that it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of where I am on my journey as well. Just like looking for some sort of label and trying to put themselves in some sort of box that they can use to like almost like steal the valor of sobriety. It was really funny.
It is really funny, and I get it. Like I get the idea of being like, I'm interested in cutting back on drinking and maybe potentially moving towards sobriety in the future. But I can totally understand from the perspective of somebody like Lala, who speaks up, who's like, you know, has struggled with drink and has been like actually sober for years, just being like, that's not a fucking real thing. Don't, you know, that's not, that's not how you talk about these things, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I was like, is that, when I was watching, I was like, is that actually a real thing that I just didn't know about?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that about covers the highlights. Let's quickly go around and pick our stars from this. Dan, who are your stars?
I mean, my number one star was Lisa. I liked that she was kind of the therapist in this episode. Yeah. Like she was there talking to Tom, and I think James was his name at a different time talking to, and she seemed like she was actually trying to help. Like they weren't, Tom in particular wasn't really listening, but it seemed like she was actually trying to help, like you would expect a therapist to do. I don't think she was an actual therapist, but that, I mean, that made her the star of the show for me, because I just liked that amidst all this drama and things that are going on, like she was actually trying to help.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, she does have a little bit of an ulterior motive, trying to get everyone to go out there and promote the opening of the sexiest restaurant in Lake Tahoe. But it was nice to see her in a little bit of a different capacity than we have seen her historically on this show, because she has always been someone that is kind of put on a different platitude than the rest of the cast. She's always had a bit of a power dynamic with them, but here she was like really listening and talking as peers, and so that was interesting to see, because like she's not really their boss anymore within the world of the show. I guess she's executive producer on the show, so she is probably technically their boss. But it was interesting to see that. Dylan, what are your stars?
Yeah, I do like the shout out to Lisa. That's it. She did have a good episode, I thought. I don't always love Lisa, but this was actually a good showing for her, showing some humanity and having some decent words to say. I feel like the first star has to be Sandoval because he is, like I said, the gravitational force that's kind of making everything happen. So not because not passing a moral judgment by giving him first star, but saying he's the one making it work. They're in his orbit right now, so they're in his orbit even by avoiding him. And so, sure, let's give him the first star. Let's give a second star to Scheana for riding in on a Shania Twain motorcycle. And third star to Billy Lee because she's there. Hasn't really done anything yet, but like to have her back. We haven't seen her in a while. And you know what? There needs to be at least some people on Team Sandoval, right? If for the drama, we need some people to be on his side. So let's see more of Billy Lee becoming an actual character on the show again, as somebody who's on Team Sandoval, even if she's just on Team Sandoval because they've slept together. I choose to believe that because every other time there's been rumors about Sandoval sleeping with somebody, it's always been true. So I'll believe that one too. Get ahead of the game there. But let's see more of Billy Lee. So I'll give her a star just because I'm glad to see her back.
Yeah, and you know what is so compelling about the people that are in Tom Sandoval's orbit right now is that there's a lot higher stakes for them. Like all the people that are surrounding Ariana, right? Like there's that's like, I don't know.
It is
that's
the path
very
of least
low stakes.
resistance.
That's so easy to do. But all these people that are, like hanging on and trying to get famous or like whatever their motivation is to be in his orbit, it's just like more compelling. There's more like desperation there. There's like more thirst. And that's like, maybe it's not pretty, but that is something that is needed in order to have these like compelling dynamics on TV. So yeah, I think that's a really good call out. My number one pick is going to be Tom Sandoval for sure. Number two, Scheana. And yeah, those are really my. Actually, I'll give number three to Tom Schwartz because I think the work that he has to do is work that he's not used to really doing, and having the weight of the story being on his shoulders and trying to drive things forward is responsibility he's not used to, and he's handling it in a very like fabulously awkward way. So love to see that.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any other final thoughts before we close things up here?
That covers everything I had.
Cool.
Number two.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Dan. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun. You can find me at basedonatruestorypodcast.com.
Awesome. Dylan, how about yourself?
Nice. I just want to say I'm really stoked to listen to your show, Dad. I haven't listened to it yet, but that sounds really interesting. I haven't mentioned this for a while, but I'll shout out to a limited show I did a little while ago, a podcast called The Devil You Don't, which is about American history and cryptozoology. So yeah, check that out if you want to hear me blabber on about some historical shit.
That sounds right up my alley. I'll listen to that.
I'm Craig Midwinter. You can just find me here or our Instagram at Bravo Outsider. We're on TikTok, YouTube. Just search us. You'll find us. Go check out BravoOutsider.com if you've got a VR headset. We just launched a beta VR experience of the podcast. Maybe you're on it right now and we're like right in your periphery. But check that out. Until next week, keep on wifing.
You can stroke Craig's beard, I heard, in the VR.